Hi everyone, in this video I am gonna tell you about such a service as Azure WebJobs. This is a really cool service and I will show you how to use it efficiently. We will also define the main differences between Azure Functions and Azure WebJobs. It will help you to understand which one is more appropriate for your case. There is out-of-the-box login for WebJobs, so it's needed to show how to use it. Microsoft provides us SDK, which will help to implement background tasks faster and simplify many programming tasks. We will go through main features. It's needed also to show you how to use extensions to enable triggering tasks by different events. I will also show how to create web job within web app and different ways to publish it to Azure. So let's start. So WebJob is a feature of Azure App Service that enables you to run a program or script in the same instance as a web application or mobile application or any other one. There is no additional cost to use WebJobs. There are two possible types of Azure WebJobs. It can be continuous, they are executed in a continuous loop. For example, we want to trigger some task when new message in some message queue appears, or we trigger some process when new file in some folder of Azure Blob storage was added. And trigger can be executed manually. So if we want to trigger it manually, we should go to Azure portal and click manually run button to start web job, or it can be scheduled, for instance each 5 minutes or each Monday at some time. The following file types can be used as Azure Web Job. So it can be executables like console applications, it can be using Windows commands and other specified here file types. The web jobs will be hosted on the same virtual machine as your Azure web application. That's why there is no additional cost. When we publish our web jobs, they are deployed to the same folder structure where our site exists. Here are shown a few triggered and continuous jobs located in the jobs folder. In simple words, WebJob is a piece of logic, as for example console application, which can be run manually clicking run button on Azure portal, or triggered on schedule basis, or triggered when some event is fired. First of all, let's create simple web application. From Visual Studio I will choose create new project, and here any of available templates. Let's choose this one. Let's name it. Click next and create. So here we have our web application. Let's create web job project. Our web job will be a simple console application. Let's create it and add as a project to this solution. So I'm gonna choose new project, and as I mentioned, it will be console application. Create. In reality, we will have some important task to run, but now for demonstration, here we have just hello world, which will be written to console. Let's publish this web job to Azure. There are two possible ways to publish web job to Azure. The first one, the most simple one I will show you now, is to create archive and then publish it manually to Azure. Then I will also show you the production way to publish web job. Let's go to Azure portal. Now I am on the page of web application. Web application service can be created from the home page. Let's click create a resource, and here we have web application. If you don't see web application from the list below, you can search it and then choose this one and create. And here I have app service. Let's find web jobs from the list on the left. Here, let's click it. At the moment we don't have any web job added. Let's add the first one. Let's name it Then we should choose the file, but we still didn't make an archive. Let's go to Visual Studio and go to the file, the executable and libraries. Let's create archive. Here I have created this archive. Let's go back to Azure portal. Here I can choose this file. And then I should choose the type of this web job, continuous or triggered. Let's choose triggered one. And we can choose the manual or scheduled way of triggering this web job. Manual one will be available from the list here. Here we can just click run web job and it will be run. I want our web job to be run by some schedule, so I choose here scheduled trigger, and now I should write this CRON expression. What is CRON expression? Let's look here in this page. We have some explanation. So CRON expression consists of 6 fields. Each of field describe the schedule, like seconds, minutes, hours, days, months, and day of a week. For example, this CRON expression will trigger web job each 5 minutes. For example, I want to run my web job each 5 minutes, so I can choose this CRON expression and then click create web job. Here we have the edit web job in the list. This is the only one here, but we can add a lot of new web jobs here. We can see here the status of last run. It is completed now. Let's look in logs. As you remember, I chose a schedule each 5 minutes, and we can see each 5 minutes it was run. Let's check the last run. Here we have system information that this job was started, and this record shows hello world from our web job console application here. So this web job was run successfully. Let's go back to the page of web jobs, and here we have a few action buttons. Logs, we already investigated this button. We can also run this web job manually. Even if we have schedule, we also can run it manually, and we can delete it. Now let's create web job using SDK. I need to add a new project to our solution as a console application. Let's do it. Console application. So I need to add needed SDK. Here we should find web job, and this is the package we need to install. Let's add some code to show SDK features we can use to run some tasks triggered by different events. I already added some code. Let's go through it and analyze what we have. First of all, let's start from our startup program class file. So we need to configure our application. I added only one configuration file app settings, which is for now empty. If we need, we can add some configuration to this file. We need to tell our application which jobs we need to trigger, and we can do it creating type locator class. This is the implementation of type locator interface of WebJobs SDK, and in such a way, for example, we have our jobs written in this file, and we add service type locator as implementation of type locator interface, and our application will know that all jobs located in this file should be triggered. Then we need to configure our host. We can see this section configure our web jobs. Here I added add timers extension method because I commented all other ones and I have only timer trigger jobs, so I added this add timer extension method. But if we have for example Blob trigger jobs or queue or other ones, we should also enable it. For example, if we have Blob triggered jobs, we should also add this line at Azure Storage Blobs and configure it. For example, we can add Azure Storage Blobs, storage queues, timer triggered jobs, ServiceBus, and then we should configure login. Here I have just default login to console, but we also can implement our custom login if we need it. And here we add services. We inject services here if we need it. So here I just have implementation of type locator, and then we run our host. So this application will be executed continuously in a loop. Let's go through implementation of different kinds of jobs. Let's start from the first one. It's blob triggered jobs. Here we have our first job to be run. According to the name of this class, all these methods are related to blob storage, and these methods are triggered when a new blob or a new blob appears in our blob container or it is updated. And this first one listens to the blob container called with name input, and here we have pattern name, so we can get the name of a blob which was added to this blob storage, and then we can already write this blob to another blob called output. Of course, if we need it, if we just need to read some blob from our blob storage, we won't add this another attribute here. This next method will be triggered when a new blob is created by this method, and we also put pattern here like name and extension of blob, and then we can use this name and extension for some purposes if we need it, and then we just read this file. We don't do something special here. If we need this, we do some activities, we can do some activities with this file. And here we have some another examples. Let's look at this example. We can see here another attribute, queue trigger, so we can have some queue in our storage container. This queue name is persons, and if a new message appears in this queue, we can read this message as an instance of person class. Let's look at this person class. This class has just two attributes, name and age, and it means that if the new message appears in this queue persons as a string of JSON type, so it should be like name Alex and age. So in such case, when this message in queue appears, our method will read this message as a person instance, and here we have this Alex as a name here, and we can use this name for some purposes. In reality, we can have a situation when some blob fails for some reason, and we can configure a queue. If this method fails 5 times, this message will be marked as poison, and then we can create a method which will handle this situation, poison error, and then we have poison error handler here method where we will log information about this blob which fails for some reason. This file demonstrates different queue triggered jobs. So first of all, we have some queue in our storage, and this method will be fired when a new message appears in this queue. For example, the first method, we have a queue in our storage called initial order. Also we have blob storage called orders, and also we have another queue called orders. When a new message appears in initial order queue, it will be written as an instance of order type. Let's look at this class. It contains just two attributes, name and order ID. So this message will be of JSON type with name and order ID. And then when we receive this order, we will put this order as a blob to orders blob storage, and also we will create a new message and put it to the queue orders. That's it for this method. This method demonstrates a new attribute timeout. After 15 seconds, this method will be cancelled, and the log job completed will be written. Here we have the example of implementation iBinder interface. This is like another approach of writing such methods. This method demonstrates that we can read a message from queue as an instance of special type, but also we can include another properties like name. Name is a part of a message, so order contains name and let's remember name and order ID, that we also can separate, and also we can retrieve some additional information as a example the queue count if we need it. And this method demonstrates how to work with failures. Here we intentionally throw some exception, and if this method fails 5 times, this message will be moved into a poison queue, and then we can listen to this queue and write some log to show that something happened wrongly. Let's go to another file, ServiceBus trigger jobs. So we also can trigger some tasks when a new message in ServiceBus is created. Here we read some message from one ServiceBus and then write this message to another one. We can also pass some bus message from a queue to topic using a broker message here. And these last 2 methods demonstrates topic subscription listeners. And the last type of trigger jobs I want to show you is timer trigger jobs. Timer trigger jobs are triggered according to some schedule. For example, if you want to trigger some task each 5 minutes or each period of time, we will use this type of trigger jobs. This schedule can be implemented as a CRON expression or some other custom class. So the first method is triggered each 5 minutes. We can change this CRON expression, for example, to run it each 2 hours, and here we can see another parameter, run on startup. It means that when this application is started, we won't wait 2 hours before the first run of this task, so it will be fired immediately, and then each 2 hours. Here we don't use a CRON expression, we use more user-friendly view of string. This method will be fired each 30 seconds. We can also implement our custom class and trigger our job according to the schedule we specified. For example, we can run this job every day, daily schedule, but at the time specified here. This is another implementation of weekly schedule. Weekly schedule is also implemented in our SDK. We need to run our task on Mondays, Wednesday 2 times, and on Friday at 10 AM. Also, we can use disable attribute. If we put this setting key to our settings file and mark it as 1 or 0 or true or false, and then if this setting is true, it will be disabled. We can also use fixed delay retry attribute. For example, if our task wasn't completed successfully, we can try to finish it 3 times with a delay of 10 seconds. How to publish web job? We just need to add one more step to our building pipeline for our web application. So for example, we have web application and one web job. This is an example when we have a task to publish our web project and also a task to publish web job. So nothing special here. We just need to specify correct type of job. For example, when we use SDK, this web job will be of type continuous web job, and we can also create web job of triggered type, and then this web job as a console application will be run according to some schedule or manually. If we use SDK, we will specify continuous web job here. Let's also look at the settings.job file. This file tells Azure how to run our web job. For example, if we have triggered web job or web job of type triggered, we can specify the schedule by which Azure should run this web job. For example, I specified that schedule is each 15 minutes, and Azure, when we publish this web job, Azure will fire this job each 15 minutes. If we have continuous web job like here, we can specify whether this web job should be treated as Singleton. We can see that Visual Studio IntelliSense specifies commands about this configuration, and it tells us that if we have multiple instances of our web application and we marked our web job as Singleton, only one instance of web job will be run. It can be very useful when we don't need multiple instances of web job together with multiple instances of our web application. Web job topic is really large and I didn't want to make very long video, so if you still don't know something about web job and if there are some moments you didn't understand, you can write your answers in comments below and I will try to answer them. Thank you for watching this video. If it was useful, please like it. Bye.